for my city that I was responsible for. I lost a lot of very close friends.
Welcome back to this special edition of News Channel 5. You know, just about everyone remembers where they were or what they were doing on September 11th, 2001. I remember I was in the newsroom watching the events unfold, watching in disbelief. I remember the next newscast. It was September 12th, 2001, the new newscast, the first newscast of News Channel 5, as I was anchoring with former anchor Brad Harvey, and we were holding up newspapers saying terror hits home and headlines from the Akron Beacon Journal. We were taking comments from viewers who had been affected by this terrible tragedy. And now here I am today live 10 years later. And actually my producer James, he kept that Plain Dealer newspaper that had the headline, "Terror Hits Home." It still rings home today. I'm going to go now to my colleague Leon Bibb, live at the Pentagon.
Bring home still today, Danita. 10 years ago, when terrorists commandeered those aircraft in their attack on America,
that's good.
We at News Channel 5 were pushed into action as we had never been pushed before. I remember how it was that day 10 years ago, September the 11th, 2001. There was a nervousness nationwide. There was a nervousness in our newsroom, but still we had jobs to do. The day was beautiful. Skies, horizon to horizon, deepest of blue. A late summer day, much as this one. But the nation's postcard pretty was gutted instantly into an ugliness which would change the world forever. Some of this video from September 11, 2001, from the News Channel 5 vaults, was recorded and archived by video editor Dennis Cassidy.
Emotionally, it was very, very hard because we knew it was our own people dying in those blazes.
10 years ago, this newsroom was on highest priority.
Trying to then find out locally who had family, friends, who was there that day.
That day of 9/11, 2001, terrorists had plunged 2 jetliners into New York's World Trade Center and a 3rd into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Terrorists tried to do the same with a 4th airplane. Northeast Ohio skies had been location of the hijacking of United Flight 93. Which crashed into the Pennsylvania meadow when passengers fought for control of it from terrorists, driving it instead into the ground rather than into the terrorists' intended target.
Possibly toward the White House. And that was a plane that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
The story hit Cleveland too. When an airplane suspiciously landed at Cleveland Hopkins Airport, News Channel 5 cameraman Jim Lentz and Bob Seeley were dispatched there.
I don't know whether we expected it to blow up. I don't know if we expected that maybe there were terrorists on board.
I saw officers going up and down the stairs to get into the airplane. They had guard dogs with them.
I don't think anyone knew what to expect except that, wait a minute, something's wrong here, and any place could be the next target.
That plane was later determined as clean. The entire nation was on its highest alert. News Channel 5 journalists and producers covered whatever we could cover, all wondering what would or could happen next and where.
Especially when it comes to a situation like 9/11 was. It hit everybody. My brother was on a train, I found out afterward, that had arrived at the World Trade Towers maybe 20 minutes before the first plane hit. But he called me that morning telling me that he was okay and that he walked through the city because all the subways were shut down, the traffic was shut down. The only way you can do, you had basically the entire city of New York and the tri-state area walking out of the city. So you're talking 7-8 million people.
News Channel 5 covered the hundreds of aspects of the tragic story. There are few pictures of the behind the scenes in the newsroom decision-making process. In such emergencies, our cameras point outward, not inward. Focus was on terrorist attacks and on defensive measures of America and Northeast Ohio to rush help to where it was needed.
So we were trying to get in contact with local firefighters, local police, construction workers, trying to find out when they were going, seeing if we can do anything to assist them, and trying to really bring the story home to Northeast Ohio.
Everything was happening right in front of your own eyes. You just took your camera, you point, you shoot, you just gather as much as you can because things are happening all around you.
In my professional career, I cannot equate 9/11 with any other day. It was a worldwide story which unfolded on us as we worked. And at the same time, there were torrents of emotion flowing through our own bodies. 10 years later, the impact of 9/11 still hits me right here. In the News Channel 5 newsroom, we tried to chronicle the events of that horrible day, yet at the same time, steady our own nerves.
You can't help but feeling emotion. You have to check it. You have to put it behind you. You have to do your job, but it's still there.
The angst goes along with everyone who's working. Everyone who's out there, from everyone in the newsroom to all the reporters and photographers in the field, is feeling the same fears that you are. They just have to keep them down enough to continue to do their job.
In the minds of individuals and in the nation's collective memory are deeply seared images of 9/11. The mental pictures and gut-wrenching emotions will never retreat. For America, 9/11 was a turning point in an arc still being drawn. The nation will never forget, and neither will the journalists in the newsroom where I labor, chronicling the events which have touched our times and our lives. For me, it was a gut-wrenching day. No doubt a gut-wrenching day for you. That's September the 11th, 2001. While I was trying to do my job with all the butterflies and the nervousness in my own belly, I received a phone call from my daughter. She lived here in Washington. She lived near the Pentagon and could see the smoke from that building from the fiery crash. At the same time, she worked near the White House, and she was worried. And I told her, Allison, the entire world is worried today. And that's how it was 10 years ago as we commemorate the 10th anniversary of the fiery crash at the Pentagon and at Shanksville and at New York City. Let's go back now to our colleague and good friend John Cossack in Cleveland.
Leon, on the morning of September 11th, we knew immediately what was happening behind you at the Pentagon and at Ground Zero. But is what was happening unfolding in Shanksville, Pennsylvania that we were last to see? And when we saw those images came in, they burned an image in our mind that we will never forget. And that is the way one person in particular feels about that day, former Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge. News Channel 5's Justin Michaels sat down with Ridge.
Former Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge is one of the many Americans directly affected by the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001.
And tonight I also announced a distinguished American to lead this effort to strengthen American security. A military veteran, an effective governor, a true patriot, a trusted friend, Pennsylvania's Tom Ridge.
In a time of national crisis, when the president knocks on the door, whether you're Republican or Democrat, your answer is, yes, Mr. President, how can I serve?
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States.
After 7.5 years, Ridge left a job he loved, being governor of Pennsylvania. He moved his family to Washington to serve the greater good after a day that brought our country to its knees.
Once we went from bended knee in prayer, and that's exactly what we did right after 9/11. This was a country that its sense of vulnerability, the sense of anxiety, but there's also a sense of cohesion, a sense of unity. And over the past 10 years, if we've proven anything to ourselves, it's that we are undeniably resilient.
The job of the newly created White House Office of Homeland Security grew quickly and soon turned into a federal department. The Department of Homeland Security, led by now Secretary of Homeland Security Tom Ridge, was charged with coordinating federal agencies for the security of our nation. And Ridge quickly learned that in order to do his job effectively, an effective way to communicate terror information to the public was necessary.
I remember coming off after the third or fourth press conference, I turned a couple aides of mine and said, this doesn't cut it. We have to tell America the nature of the threat, and then we have to tell them what to do about it.
From that discussion was born the color-coded alert system, a system, almost from the onset, that was subject to ridicule.
Every color, and it could have been a number, it could have been anything, meant that there was a predetermined set of security measures you had to put in place. Apparently that never got quite across, else it would have been subject to so much ridicule.
Since that system, others have followed, with Ridge's two successors, Secretaries of Homeland Security Michael Chertoff and Janet Napolitano. But Ridge says one thing that has remained the same, regardless of who's in the White House or which party controls Congress, the American resolve to handle anything that comes our way is as strong as ever.
We can deal with this. We've dealt with everything that's been thrown at this country for 200 years, so we can take care of ourselves. We don't live in fear, we live in freedom, and nobody operating out of caves or in Pakistan, anybody else is going to take it away from us.
Vietnam veteran to congressman to governor to the first director of Homeland Security, the Secretary Tom Ridge, reflecting on the events of 9/11. Stay with us. Remembering 9/11 continues.
It made me sick to my stomach to see that. You know, I knew how many people had been hurt in that. You know, I can feel the empathy for the people that are trapped in the tower. You know, I just couldn't believe how they're going to get out of there.